Alright, hello everybody. Friendly Red here, back with another report of upcoming game releases. We've reached the end of summer, and with its closure comes a massive wave of re-releases, remakes, and sequels, with a dash of original, wholly new games in there as well. As per usual, before we get into the discussion proper, please keep in mind that release dates are always subject to change, and what's presented in this video may be out of date by the time it is posted. Now, let's get to talking about some new video games. Starting us off right in the middle of the month, the 15th sees the release of Off. Our first of many re-releases to discuss for this Red's radar, this version of Off serves as a remaster of the original 2008 cult classic RPG. I gotta say, I never really would have expected Off to get any sort of re-release or remaster, but I'm certainly not complaining, as it's a game I really need to play for myself. My first and only exposure to this game was back in my early years of university, where a newly made friend introduced me to the game, which led into me watching him play through it. I don't really remember too much about the game, other than it being quite bizarre and somewhat unsettling. One thing that has stuck with me through all these years, though, was the music of Off, or at least the track that plays during battles, titled Pepper Steak. If I were to compare it to anything I have played, I'd say Off reminds me most of games like Undertale, Deltarune, and Earthbound. Like in those titles, Off sees you roaming around different areas of a large overworld, solving puzzles and other environmental challenges along the way, and engaging in some old-school, turn-based battles as well. I suppose it's somewhat ironic I compare Off to the likes of Undertale and Deltarune, as it's fair to say the original release of Off in 2008 helped pave the way for those and other games like it to break into the limelight, and led to tons of other games that were probably inspired by Off, like One Shot and Omori to name two. Plus, the main developer of Undertale and Deltarune, Toby Fox, is actually contributing to the new soundtrack of this remaster of Off, so it's almost like a coming full circle kind of moment. Anyways, this remaster seems to be shaping up nicely, offering up a revamped battle system, quality of life improvements over the original game, including checkpoints, accessibility features, and updated menu graphics and animations, and even new areas and bosses designed by the original creator of Off, Mortis Ghost. This remaster will also be the first time the game is ever available on consoles too, as it'll be released on Nintendo Switch in addition to PC. It's a shame the original composer didn't return, or allow for the option to use the game's original soundtrack in this remaster, as I know the music was a big part of Off's appeal. But with Toby Fox on board, I'm sure the new soundtrack will be good, and at least for the PC version of the remaster, I imagine modders will have this issue fixed pretty easily soon after launch. I'm looking forward to experiencing this game properly real soon, and hopefully everyone else, new and returning players alike, will find something to enjoy with this remaster of one of the most influential RPGs of the last 20 years. Off will be releasing on Friday, August 15th for Nintendo Switch and PC. Following Off's return, a few days later on the 19th, we see one of the few games that's on a re-release or sequel we're covering this month make its debut, that being Sword of the Sea. Coming to us from Giant Squid Studios, the developers behind ABZU and The Pathless, their latest venture looks to combine the best elements of both of those previous titles and combine them together to create another mesmerizing adventure. I've yet to play their prior games, but they're for sure on my radar, as is their new game here, of course. Now, I initially learned about Sword of the Sea during the PlayStation State of Play back in June of this year, which is where I assumed it debuted, but the game was actually initially announced back in 2023. Between the footage shown in that initial announcement and the newer trailer from June's State of Play, it's a bit hard to fully grasp as to what exactly the goals or objective will be in Sword of the Sea, but I can at least say I'm really digging the game's style, and the focus on fast and flowing movement across the world using a hoverboard looks right up my alley, as I really enjoy games that emphasize or embrace fast movement mechanics. After looking into it a bit more, the core of the game seems to revolve around using your hover sword to traverse the world, maintaining a high speed and pulling off tricks, as you explore and take in the sights and sounds of the strange mix of desert, sea, and forgotten ruins that all help make up the playable space in-game. Basically, it's all about the journey with this one, rather than the destination, which aligns with what I know about their other games. Speaking of journeys, honestly, when the trailer they showed during June's State of Play started up, I actually thought this was a sequel to Journey, as it shared a lot of similar looks and gave off a similar sort of vibe to that game. I ended up being proven wrong, though it's fair to say that there's certainly some of Journey's DNA within Sword of the Sea, as Matt Nava and Austin Wintory are both contributing to the game, and they served as an artist and the main composer for Journey, respectively. This is looking to be yet another hit from Giant Squid and all the other contributing artists and developers, and it's a world I'm ready to get immersed and lost in very soon. Sword of the Sea will be releasing on Tuesday, August 19th for PS5 and PC. Right near the end of August, the 28th brings a dual release of re-releases, with Kirby and the Forgotten Land making its way to Switch 2, with some enhancements to the core game, and some wholly new content thrown in as well, and a legendary PS2 game returning for modern audiences and existing fans to enjoy, with Metal Gear Solid Delta: Snake Eater. We'll start with the Pink Puffballs game, as there both is and isn't quite as much I have to say about it, at least compared to Snake Eater. In case you don't know, Kirby and the Forgotten Land initially launched on Nintendo Switch back in 2022, and was the first fully 3D mainline Kirby game. It was an absolutely amazing conversion of the tried and true 2D Kirby formula into a new dimension, and even looking back on it now, it's still surprising to me just how well the developers over at HAL Laboratories executed Kirby's first 3D adventure. I suppose they had the benefit of time on their side, as well as plenty of other great 3D platformers to pull knowledge and ideas from, mixed with their own experiences and ideas gained from crafting so many Kirby games over the years. It's one of the best games on the original Switch, and I'd say an easy top 10 contender for best overall Kirby game. I mean, it ain't the GOAT, but it's still pretty good. As for Forgotten Land's return on Switch 2, the game will receive a performance and resolution boost over the game running on original Switch, and much like we just saw with Mario Party Jamboree's Switch 2 edition, new content will be added in as well, known as Star-Crossed World. The exact details of what all is being added with this new content is still pretty slim as of the writing of this script, but according to the official description on the game's online store page, there will be some new mouthful modes added, and seemingly a mix of brand new and remixed returning stages to play through, at least judging from the brief footage we've seen of this content. Overall, pretty sweet to see one of the Switch's finest games get a second life on Switch 2, and for anyone who missed out on it, this Switch 2 version will offer up the best way to play the game now. I'm happy it's coming so soon, and I'm equally happy that there's also going to be some new content added in, as that's what I'm most excited for with this Switch 2 upgrade. It's cool that the base game will be getting enhanced, but I already 100%'d Forgotten Land, and I can't say I really have a desire to go back through it again. So there being some new content added in addition to the core enhancements ensures that both new and returning players have something to look forward to. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Star-Crossed World will be releasing on Thursday, August 28th, exclusively for Switch 2. As for the other re-release of the 28th, Metal Gear Solid Delta: Snake Eater serves as a full-on remake of the beloved third entry of the Metal Gear Solid series, and aside from MGS4, is the only numbered title in the franchise I've yet to play myself. I guess waiting as long as I did has paid off, as I can now experience MGS3 with a shiny new coat of paint, alongside some quality of life additions and changes that should make it play a bit more like MGS5, which is really only a good thing, as the Phantom Pain remains the pinnacle of the series with regards to gameplay. While I did say this is a full-on remake, not everything is being redone. In fact, it's mainly just the visuals that see the bulk of changes, as most everything else that made up the PS2 release, the original voice acting, story, characters, music, even the cutscenes themselves seem to be shot-for-shot recreations. Much of the DNA of the original remains unchanged for Delta, which honestly is probably for the best. While the Metal Gear series itself is pretty legendary on its own, I feel Snake Eater is almost in its own league, somehow rising above the legendary status of the series it hails from into something even greater. With that in mind, I can see why the developers would go the route they did when it came to remaking Snake Eater. Could the developers have changed everything? Could it have been done well? I'd like to think so, but that's no doubt an almost insurmountable task to tackle on its own, so I can understand why they would decide to just stick to what already worked to begin with. Besides, redoing all the visual assets and refining the gameplay to be more in line with MGS5 and overall modern standards, while still distinctly being Snake Eater, was already a lot for the team, I'm sure, so smartly balancing new and old content and assets into Delta was the smartest move to make. We've got just a bit longer to see if Konami's been able to pull it off, and I'm certainly hopeful that they did. As I mentioned before, this is one of the few remaining numbered titles in the series I haven't played yet, and it's gonna be awesome to finally experience this legendary game for myself. And to any of the returning players or fans that may already be upset about this remake in any way, consider this. The Ape Escape content from PS2 remains. So yeah, Game of the Year. Metal Gear Solid Delta: Snake Eater will be releasing on Thursday, August 28th for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC. As has become basically a tradition now, there's some other titles releasing this month that I'd like to mention, but don't have as much to say on, or are just lower on my radar than the highlighted titles were, so I won't be getting to them for quite some time, most likely. Jumping back to the beginning of the month, Demon Slayer: Kimetsu no Yaiba: The Hinokami Chronicles 2 will be releasing on the 5th. This one comes courtesy of CyberConnect 2, also known as the absolute legends of making 3D anime fighters, as they were of course responsible for the original Hinokami Chronicles, but also the Naruto Ninja Storm games and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which I'm still shocked is still getting DLC and support to this day. I never played too much of Hinokami 1, but like the other games I mentioned CyberConnect 2 made, it was an authentic looking, easy to pick up and play fighter, and I imagine the same will remain true of the sequel, just with more characters, stages, and story to play through, presumably up to the Infinity Castle arc, which will begin its anime movie run later this year here in the States. Hinokami Chronicles 2 will be out for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series consoles, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Next, we've got a smorgasbord of third-person shooters, with Mafia: The Old Country on the 8th, Gears of War Reloaded on the 26th, and the Xbox release of Helldivers 2, also on the 26th. I've never played any of the Mafia games, but they've always seemed to be cool alternatives to games like Red Dead Redemption and GTA, taking place in arguably more interesting settings and time periods. I know this new game's been a long time coming, and I'm certainly digging the choice of setting and the focus on a classic mob story. It'll be out for PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC, and it may just be the first ever Mafia game I play myself, at some point. Now, Gears of War and Helldivers 2 are two games I'm very much familiar with, and it's super cool to see PlayStation and Xbox swapping exclusives to one another on the same day. These are both fantastic, bombastic, and supremely gory games to blast through, made even better when you squad up and play with friends. I'm not exactly itching to replay Gears 1 right now, but it's nice to know I'll have a better version to access whenever I do feel like revisiting it, and Helldivers 2 is a game I've had since launch on PC. Still, it's great that more players will be able to dive into this wonderful game, and those of us already playing on PS5 or PC, it could certainly use the backup. Gears of War Reloaded will be out on PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC, and Helldivers 2 will finally be out on Xbox Series consoles, joining the current PlayStation 5 and PC platforms it's currently available on. Finally, after seeing a last-minute delay in May, Lost Soul Aside will finally, hopefully, be releasing after a lengthy 10+ years of development. This one's looking to be an enjoyable character action game, mashing together ideas and some visual identity that reminds me of DMC and Final Fantasy, specifically 15. I think it'll be good, dumb fun like a lot of games in the genre are, but otherwise I don't have too much to add on this one. I do hope it clears this new release date, and finally reaches the finish line though, because, man, this one's been cooking for quite some time. This one will be out on PlayStation 5 and PC. And that's what's on the radar for August. Looking over everything, there's some fantastic looking original games and sequels, alongside some all-time greats returning on modern hardware for new and old fans alike. Sure, an abundance of older games reappearing may not make for the most exciting month of game releases, but like the original Gears of War, Off, Snake Eater, that's not a collection of just any returning games. We're talking some of the best of their respective genres. Add in the original releases, like Sword of the Sea, Lost Soul Aside, and, I guess we could consider the Starcross World section of Forgotten Land original? Alright, so overall, it may not be the most original month of game releases, but it's no doubt still an exciting one. Whether you're going to be revisiting an old favorite, or experiencing it for the first time, checking out a newer title, or just continuing to work on prior releases from this year or before, the 8th month of 2025 should be great for any kind of players out there. But, with all that being said, I think that'll do it for this video. If you made it to the end, I thank you for watching. Your continued viewership and support is greatly appreciated. Hope I was able to entertain, inform, and perhaps interest you in some upcoming releases you may not have known about. And last, but certainly not least, as always, I'll see you next time.